All right, everybody. This week I thought I would walk you through setting up the new project. Okay, as you can see on the page I have here, the next project, it's project 2. We're not counting that ninja exercise as an actual project because it was a shorter one. This is a museum card. Okay, this is for the Museum of Contemporary Art, a fictitious museum, and it's for a show about the art of the 1960s, which is op art, pop art, and psychedelic art. Okay, now before you actually start the project, you may want to do a little bit of research. Down here, you can see op art, pop art, psychedelic art, and a bunch of names of artists that were popular in the 1960s and some samples of their work. Here we got Victor Vasarely, who did op art, and here we have Peter Max, who did psychedelic art. Okay, so you might want to do a little research and get a feel for what this kind of stuff is, and look for something that appeals to you. Okay, yeah, op art is very geometric. Quite often, there's a lot of really cool sort of visual effects that go on with it. Pop art is usually very colorful and sort of comic book oriented. Just look at Andy Warhol or who is that other guy that did the Roy Lichtenstein? Yeah, I was drawing a blank on his name. Okay. And then if you like the really trippy stuff, there's the psychedelic thing. You can also use icons of the era if you like to kind of project that sort of a mood. All right, so let's go ahead and set this up. We'll go down to the specs here. We're also going to be using a Fibonacci spiral. A Fibonacci spiral is used by graphic designers and not just that, but artists and all kinds of people for centuries to lead a viewer's eye, and I'll show you how to use that in just a moment. But what we have right here, okay, we need a document that's 7 by 9, vertical or horizontal, one artboard with a full bleed. Okay, so let's go ahead and set that up. So let's go ahead and create new. You get the usual thing that comes up. And what we're going to go with, though, let's go ahead and click on print so it's so the DPI is right. And we're going to go with inches. And let's double check that size was 7 by 9, I think is what it was. Double check this. Yeah, 7 by 9. Okay, so we'll go with, let's see, 7 wide by 9 tall. Or if you want to go the other way, you can too. It doesn't really matter. One artboard. We're going to have a little bit of a bleed, okay, all the way around. And that should do it. Color mode CMYK. Good. Create. Okay, and there's our card. Right now, my my workspace is set for painting. I think for this project, I'm going to make a switch and put it on typography. Okay. Hold on just a second. Okay, sorry about that. I had a dehumidifier kick on and start making a lot of noise, and I didn't know if it would come through on the recording here. Okay, so back to this. Let's see. I'm going to put in some rulers here. I like to have my rulers show, and then Command 0, so I get the whole thing on here. Okay, now the first thing I want to do though is I want to put my Fibonacci spiral in. Okay, I'm going to take a look at my layers here. Okay, and because what I want to do is I want to have my Fibonacci spiral on a layer that's below the rest of the stuff, and I'll probably lock it in place. Okay, so let's go ahead and open that up. I'm going to go ahead and file open. Now, the Fibonacci spiral is available to download on Adobe Illustrator, and it's available as a Adobe Illustrator file or an EPS file. Either one will work. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Adobe Illustrator one. So here's this. Okay, this is our Fibonacci spiral. Okay, this is how it basically what it is and how it looks. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and grab this part of it, and I'm going to edit, copy that. I'm going to go back over here and I'm going to paste. Okay. Now, this thing is not going to be visible in the final piece. Okay. Let me zoom out here a little bit. It is just used for the placement of objects. Now I'm going to reduce it down a little bit in size. Okay, so it fits on my page. All right. I'll go ahead and grab this again. Move it up just a little bit. Now the thing is about the Fibonacci spiral, you can turn it any way that you want to work for you. Okay, if I want the focal point to be, let's say, down here, and I would have the eye of the viewer go across the page following this line and have it culminate with a focal point right here. Okay, I think in my case though I'm going to use it probably this way around, have my focal point be right here and have the eye sweep up to right about here. Okay, now I'm going to make sure this is relatively straight. That's crookeder. Okay, something like that. That ought to work. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lock this in place so I don't grab it by mistake. So Object, Lock, Selection. Okay, now it's locked in place. And that's on my first layer here, which I'm just going to rename Spiral, so I know what it is. Okay, and then I'm going to add a new layer. Go right down here to the bottom, add a new layer. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually add a bit of background color. Right now it's a white stroke with no fill. I'm just going to switch that around, so it's just a basic background color. Okay, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to rename this background. Okay. Now the stuff on this layer is going to have a red border around it. The spiral layer has the blue. Okay, but this is the active layer right now. Now what I can do too, in order to see this, still see the spiral, but be able to make it basically go away and make it invisible, is I can change the opacity of my background. So let's see, transparency, there it is. Opacity. And we'll just take this down here so I can see the spiral a little bit, but have it not be too distracting from the artwork. Okay, and then once I have that set about the way that I like it, I'm going to go ahead and lock this as well. Object, Lock, Selection. Whoops. Unlock all. Let's see. Let's go ahead and go on this spiral. Okay. Object, Lock, Selection. Okay. Now I accidentally unlocked all. That happens. Okay, Lock, Selection. Now we're all set. Okay, now let's start creating something that is sort of 60s oriented. Okay, I think what I'm going to go with, I really like the sort of mod kind of thing that was going on in the mid 1960s, before the hippie thing really took off. I like the hippie stuff too. I'm a big fan of psychedelic music and stuff. But I think for this case, I want to do something a little more more 1965, let's say, than 1968. All right. So I've got some photographs from an artist by the name of Rudy Gingrich, and he was a fashion designer and did a lot of work in the 1960s, and his stuff had a very sort of op sort of feel for it, op sort of feel. So I'm going to go ahead and open up one of these things here, and here's the thing about the kind of stuff that we use in this class. It's actually, it falls within fair use. Okay, so I'm going to grab this one here. This is Peggy Moffat. Okay, she was his primary model. And I'm gonna use this image, but I'm gonna change it a little bit. Okay, so let's go ahead and grab this. I'm gonna go ahead and copy that. I'm gonna go back to my I'm gonna close out my spiral. Go back to my thing here, and I'm gonna create a new layer. Keep this stuff straight. Call this just peg. Okay, and then I'm going to edit paste. Now it's going to be a little bit big at first, but that's okay. We're going to resize it just by going to the corner, taking it down, and seeing how this is going to work with what we have here. What I like about this image right here is that there's a certain flow to it that will work with the spiral. You can have this pattern lead the eye up to the info that we're going to have. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, though, in case you're not familiar with how you can use photographic images in Illustrator, is you can do an image trace, and an image trace will make the image, the photographic image, from a bitmap into a vector graphic, and it's also going to stylize it quite a great deal. In this case, if I go with just the basic image trace, just click it once, I get that. Okay? That's not too bad. That's actually pretty cool. I kind of like that. But you can adjust it. Here, we'll go ahead and we'll undo that. There's other image trace possibilities. Okay, so you can try, different ones out. Sketch start. Let's see what that turns out like. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And already it makes the background, transparent. Edit, undo. Let's see. Line art, I don't think there would be a whole lot there. You can do like a low fidelity photo, and it'll actually keep a lot of the gradients and stuff. But still make it into a vector graphic. So as you can see here, it's slightly posterized. All right, but that's actually pretty cool looking. I might use that. Now, in order to get rid of this extra background stuff that I don't want, here's what I need to do. This big square here and this gray down here that I need to cut off. What I need to do is I need to, while still selected, select expand. Okay, now that creates all of the plot points and lines. Okay, plot points and fills. Okay, that constitute the thing. And now what I can do is I can take my direct select tool. I'm going to shift my toolbox so the things are right next to each other. And I can click on this one corner here, and I should be able to delete away the background. Okay, good. Now, if I grab peg here with my regular selection tool, I can grab my eraser tool. Okay, I'm going to zoom in here a little bit, and I can get rid of this extra that I don't want. Okay, there's my erase tool right there. I'm going to hold down my shift key. I'm going to hold down my shift key, and that will constrain the direction that it goes in. Okay, that way it goes in an exact straight line. Now I can take my direct select tool, grab this extra, hit delete a couple of times, and it's gone. Now I'm going to go back to my thing here. Okay, that's going to work pretty well. Notice how the figure is following, the arc of the figure is following the spiral. Okay, so my focal point is going to be right here. So what's going to be in the focal point? Probably, well, let's see. Text on the promo. Okay, Museum of Contemporary Art, Art of the 1960s. Pop-up and psychedelic art. Okay, so I need to decide what's my headline and what's the and what's going where, basically, the hierarchy of it. Okay, so I've got the Museum of Contemporary Art, Art of the 1960s, Pop, Op, and Psychedelic Art. I think the headline, frankly, should be Art of the 1960s. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to copy that so I know that's spelled right. Okay, now in the meantime, before I start doing any text work, I'm going to go ahead and select Peg here, and I'm going to lock her as well. Lock that selection. Once I get something in place, I don't like to click on it by mistake. Okay, notice that I still have the spiral visible. Eventually what I will do is I will unlock everything and take the opacity up in my background and make it invisible. Okay? Alright, so let's go ahead and start adding the text. I'm going to create a new layer, and I'm going to call this the text layer. I may make 2 text layers, I'm not really sure yet. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit my text tool. Now notice I'm not creating a text box. I'm just going to click once so the basic text goes there. Now while it's still selected, I'm going to hit Command V so it replaces the Greek text with Art of the 1960s. Okay, now we'll go ahead and highlight this. I've already loaded a few fonts in here that might be good for this. This is op art kind of stuff, sort of from the mod era. So I want to have a font that is sort of that style. So I'm going to go ahead and look through here, try and find the font that I just downloaded. If you haven't started downloading fonts, you really should start doing that. There's a lot of cool stuff out there that you can use. It'll really make your work pop. Okay, now in this case, we're going to try this one out. Art of the 1960s. Okay. That looks pretty cool. I think this might be a little on the long side. I can make my text block a little bit bigger, or the text bigger by stacking it, and that might work better. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this and hit return so it's stacked. And let's see, I think that was, I think actually I need to do this. We'll, neither one seems to work all that well. I think what I'll do is I'll have the 1960s be bigger. So go ahead and start making that nice and big. Okay, so it's about the same width as Art of the. And then let's go ahead. I'm going to tighten this up a little bit by adjusting the leading and the kerning. Okay. I was thinking about maybe arcing the text, but I don't think that would really go all that well with the sort of pop art stuff. I think that would go well with psychedelic stuff, perhaps, but not this kind of thing. This kind of thing is too modern. Okay. Now, that might work. I think what I might need to do as well, I might want to have Peggy in front of part of this text. Now, one thing I might do as well, I might bring in some guidelines here and set them in 1/8 of an inch inside of the card itself. So I know I have a little bit of a margin area. Okay, so I don't get too close to the edge. You don't want to get too close to the edge because, you know, printing is not an exact science, not if it's actually going to be on paper. Now, this project, even though it will probably never be on paper since we primarily work digitally, you know, it's still a good idea to follow those rules, okay? I worked in printing for a lot of years, and I know how bolt cutters can have things shift, and boy, you know, can really mess stuff up. All right, you can go to view and go to guides, and I'm going to lock my guides. Okay, that way these things aren't going to move either. Okay, now what I might do though is I might grab my text here and move it behind, well, hang on, undo that. Undo. Okay. Okay. So anyway, what I'm going to do though is I'm going to move my text behind Peggy. Okay. So that way I can put this like here, let's say, make it a little bit bigger. Okay. And she's in front of it instead of behind it. I think that works pretty good. Might make it a little bit bigger still so it kind of follows that flow. And the rest of the info I'm going to have right about in here somewhere. I can move that right about there, make it a little bit bigger. Now you don't have to follow the spiral exactly. Okay, if you want to have it, if you know, like this is supposed to be your focal point right in here, but if it's in this general area, that still works. Okay, so there's my text right there. I kind of like that. I think it works pretty well. Um, Thinking about making it maybe a little bit taller, but I don't like to stretch letters too much. You know, if I wanted to arc it, I could. Something like that. I don't know if I like that or not. Actually, you know, that's not too bad. That kind of fills the space and makes it feel like it flows a little more. I could actually make it a little bit bigger too. Yeah, that works pretty well. I'm digging that. Okay. Using the vernacular of the era. Okay. Now, let's go ahead and get the rest of the type. Okay. So, go back to this. Let's see. Pop-up and psychedelic art. Okay, that's going to be the text that's going to go in the center, and then probably Museum of Contemporary Art below that, and then the dates. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this. Okay, and then hit my text tool. Now the thing is, what it's going to do though, if I don't change it, it's going to go with the last font that I used. I don't really want that, so I'm going to go ahead and change that right now to something that is more readable. Okay, in this case, and this is very important. Okay, you want to have stuff that is, if you have important information, you want to have a text that's readable. You don't want to use a decorative font like the one I was using for the headline for the text. Okay, but I want something fairly modern looking, something mid-century. So I'll try Arial Narrow. Okay, and I'll click Lorem Ipsum. Still pretty big. Edit. I'll go ahead and paste. Okay, that's way too big. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on that. I'm going to go ahead and knock this down to, let's say, 48. 48. Let's try that. And I also need to put this on auto, or maybe less than that. Okay, so let's set it on something like that, maybe. Okay. All right. I might need to play with this a little bit. Right now, it's also it was right justified. I didn't want that. I want it kind of centered. Let's see. Maybe we can make this bold. Okay. Pop-up psychedelic arts. Let's see. Whoops. Did I create something by mistake? I did not. Okay. All right, so that works pretty well. And like I said, you want it to be readable. Okay, that's very important. Readability is very important when it's like, you know, the info that, you know, like contact info and things like that. Okay. Okay, so next we need just the date and where it's at. So let's go back here and we'll grab Museum of Contemporary Art. Honestly, it's a lot easier to just copy and paste the info if it's available to you. We'll hit that, and Command V, Museum of Contemporary Art. That's way too big. We want this a lot smaller. So we're going to go ahead and start knocking this down. Actually, I think that having this be about the same width as psychedelic, the psychedelic art might work. So we'll take that down a little bit more to right about there. Let's set those next to each other to figure out. Okay, you know, I love the way this program will kind of line things up for you. You know, or you can also do this. While this is selected, grab this as well, and then just hit your Align Center tool. It's already pretty well aligned, and that'll take care of it right there. Okay. Now, that's a pretty good size right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in the next line, I'm just going to hit return, just like I was typing something, and then I'll go ahead and put in the dates right here. Copy that. Go back here, right there. Oops, sorry, double clicked, didn't mean to. Click that and Control V. That's a little tight right now, so while that's selected, let's give that a little more space so it's readable. Again, readability, super important, guys. You got to remember that. Even though even though special effects are all fine and good, really cool and stuff, if it ain't readable, boy, that just doesn't work. Okay, that takes care of the better part of it. Okay, I might want to go in and make some changes later on, but for the most part, that's a pretty good setup. It's following the spiral. We've got our main info here, where it is and what it is. Where our focal point should be. It follows the flow, okay, of the spiral. And again, you can use the spiral in any direction that you want. You can flip it over. You can turn it on its side. You can, have it go whichever way you want, okay? So long as it just follows that flow, okay? That's a really important part of graphic design. And that's why, I've said in reviews in the past that asymmetry is better than symmetry. Okay, it's nice to have stuff that flows across the whole page, then is equally divided, so the eye doesn't know where to rest. Okay, now let's go back to our background here, and let's go ahead and we're going to unlock all. All right, we're on the background here, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and I'm going to take the opacity all the way back up. There we are. And that's that would be pretty much the finished piece right there. Okay. Go ahead and lock. Let's see. Just kind of lock that all up. Okay. And actually, I can just easier to do it this way. All right. Now everything is all locked up and ready to go. Okay. So that is how you use a Fibonacci spiral. There's an example of the kind of thing that I'm looking for. Okay, do your research. Okay, I know most of you. Hey, I barely remember the '60s myself. I was 4 years old when the '70s started. So I have to do research as well. Do some research. Find stuff that appeals to you. If you don't like the op art or the pop art, try the psychedelic stuff. Put in some wild colors and do some crazy stuff. Look at different artists. Look those guys up. Find out what kind of stuff they did. Get a real feel for the kind of things, the kinds of things that were being done in those days. All right. Okay. I'll talk to you guys later. I look forward to seeing what you come up with.